Honey is not a detective, lawyer, or physician, nor does she play one on YouTube. Although, she does have a Bachelor's of Science degree in education.
This channel discusses true crime topics, gives commentaries, and is for entertainment. Some videos may have content that is disturbing to some and contain coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
To Facts, Opinions, and Real Talk. I'm your host, Heather Honey. After watching Karen Reed's first trial, the verdict, and a juror's interview with Turtle Boy, I knew I needed to do a video. Do you know what reasonable doubt means? If you don't, now is the time to learn. When you are picked as a juror, the judge will go over jury instructions. In a criminal trial, jurors are told that if the prosecution provides enough evidence that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. I like how the United States Court for the Ninth Circuit in California worded what reasonable doubt is in their jury instructions. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense and is not based purely on speculation. It may arise from a careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence or from lack of evidence. After listening and taking in so much information and evidence, people can become overwhelmed and forget that during deliberations, they are to determine if a defendant is not guilty or guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I know deliberations are extremely difficult. To give you an idea how difficult and stressful deliberations can be, I highly recommend watching 12 Angry Men. It's an old film, but it is still relatable and relevant to this day.
If there is a reasonable doubt, you must bring me a verdict of not guilty.
The charge, murder in the first.
The kid you just decided is not guilty was seen ramming that thing into his father.
An open and shut case. Or is it?
Hey, what is this?
Now it's up to 12 men to decide the fate of the accused and for one man to stand alone in the ultimate battle for the truth.
While the jurors are in a room trying to prove to each other what they think is the correct verdict, I believe reasonable doubt becomes lost. Jurors should take the evidence, witness testimonies, and their own prior life experiences to determine their verdict. If you are a juror, please do not allow other jurors to cause you to change your mind due to peer pressure. Unless looking at the evidence and keeping reasonable doubt in mind convinces you to change your vote. You are the one to determine the future of the defendant, and you have to live with your decision for the rest of your life. Based on watching the juror's interview with Turtle Boy, he mentioned the jury discussed other possibilities about what happened to Officer John O'Keefe. Those possibilities are reasonable doubt. Let's go over some examples of reasonable doubt in relation to Karen Reed's case. On January 29th of 2022, Officer John O'Keefe was found unresponsive by his girlfriend Karen Reed, a friend Carrie Roberts, and an acquaintance Jim McCabe on the lawn of 34 Fairview Road. While Karen and Carrie were doing CPR on John, Jen made a 911 call. The lack of a vehicle accident report raises doubts about the prosecution's assertions regarding John O'Keefe's injuries, which experts suggest are more aligned with a beating, fall, or dog attack than a vehicle impact. Despite the Commonwealth's claim that Karen's car struck him, the absence of a report indicates insufficient evidence, leading to reasonable doubt. Using a leaf blower and collecting evidence in borrowed red Solo cups raises reasonable doubt by potentially contaminating evidence and exposing flaws in investigative procedures, casting doubt on the investigation's integrity. The absence of crime scene security at 34 Fairview introduces reasonable doubt in Karen Reed's case. An open and unattended scene poses risk of evidence contamination, loss, and tampering. Without a reliable chain of custody, forensic evidence may prove unreliable. Furthermore, leaving the scene vulnerable allowed for the possibility of evidence planning or manipulation to unjustly implicate Karen Reed. The Canton Police's inability to recuse themselves despite evident conflicts of interest brings significant concerns regarding the integrity of the investigation. Their management of crucial evidence, potential tampering, and Chief Rafferty's decision to withhold footage indicates possible misconduct. The presence of bias and manipulation undermines the case's credibility, introducing reasonable doubt. The late discovery of taillight fragments, only after Trooper Proctor took possession of Karen Reed's vehicle, cast significant doubt on the reliability of the evidence. This raises concerns about possible mishandling of, or even the planting of evidence. If the fragments generally originated from the accident, they should have been identified during the initial search. Their repeated and delayed appearances diminish the strength of the prosecution's case and further instilling reasonable doubt about Reed's culpability. During Karen Reed's first trial, Matt McCabe observed police searching the snow and texted a group chat with key witnesses, Jen McCabe, Brian Albert, and Brian Higgins, about the investigation. Their close monitoring suggests a coordinated effort to control the narrative, undermining their credibility and introducing reasonable doubt regarding Reed's guilt. Lucky Loughran, a plow driver for the town of Canton, raised questions about the prosecution's timeline in Reed's case. He reported passing 34 Fairview Road at 2:45 a.m. and again at 3:30 a.m. Yet he did not see anybody, which contradicts the assertion that John O'Keefe had been present since 1 a.m. This raises the possibility that O'Keefe may have been injured and placed there afterwards. Brian Albert's German Shepherd, Chloe, had a history of aggression, and O'Keefe's injuries resembled a dog attack. The dog was suddenly rehomed. The third-party culprit theory changes the prosecution's idea that Karen struck John with her car. Evidence suggests his injuries are not from impact with the vehicle. Key video footage was deleted, and witness testimonies do not align with the prosecution's timeline and are actions that are plausible that someone else was responsible for the death of Officer John O'Keefe. Therefore, Karen Reed would be found not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Sergeant Nicholas Barrow's testimony reinforces reasonable doubt in Karen Reed's trial by contradicting the prosecution's claim that her SUV's taillight was fully shattered. This is definitely reasonable doubt. After listening to the answers Jen McCabe gave Karen's attorney Alan Jackson about what occurred the night Officer John O'Keefe died was quite concerning. Jen gave different responses in her grand jury testimony than she did in Karen's first trial. Why did her answers change? What would be her reasons for lying? If Karen said she hit John, why didn't the police immediately arrest her? First, Colin was not in the house. Then it stated Colin was in the house and left at 12:10 a.m. These questions and thoughts raise reasonable doubt. Brian Higgins' destruction of his phone and SIM card creates reasonable doubt in the prosecution of Karen Read because it suggests potential evidence that could prove Karen's innocence was purposely destroyed. Brian Higgins' decision to discard the remains of his cell phone and SIM card at an Army base raises serious questions. Higgins was at the house where John O'Keefe was last seen. The prosecution's presentation of an inverted video combined with Sergeant Buchanan's claim that the video was accurate undermines the credibility of the evidence and possibly the prosecution's case, therefore creating reasonable doubt. Michael Proctor's text messages referring to Karen Read in a derogatory fashion and searching for nude photos of Karen question the integrity and objectivity of the investigation. This creates reasonable doubt. The dismissal of the lead investigator into the death of Officer John O'Keefe based on misconduct raises questions about all the evidence that Proctor handled and if the evidence was even handled properly. This questions reasonable doubt. I want to give a huge shout out to Lynn Marie for allowing me to use her artwork for the Reasonable Doubt comic book in this video. Lynn Marie has created her own comic book that can be purchased on Amazon, and I will include that link in the show notes. I hope you learned a lot about reasonable doubt and how important it is when jurors are making deliberations. I hope this video helped people to understand what reasonable doubt is. Interview with Turtle Boy and that juror, it was really scary that it didn't seem like they understood truly what reasonable doubt is. So until next time, stay safe, be aware of your surroundings, and please do the right thing.